What if the royal baby we all celebrated was never actually born where and when they said she was? In a revelation that's sending shockwaves through royal circles, Lady Colin Campbell has dropped a bombshell. Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital has no official record of Meghan Markle giving birth to Lilibet Diana on the date claimed. No documentation, no medical trail, just a glossy announcement and a certificate that's now under intense scrutiny. Was the world misled about the birth of the Queen's namesake? And if so, why? Tonight, we investigate the missing records, the suspicious edits, and what Lady C calls one of the most brazen deceptions in royal history. Stay tuned. The truth may be darker than anyone imagined. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. What if the story we've been told about the birth of a royal child, a child who stands seventh in line to the British throne, was never real to begin with? What if the smiling photo, the birth announcement, the official certificate, and even the heartfelt tribute to the late Queen were part of a manufactured narrative, meticulously crafted behind palace walls and polished under a global spotlight? This isn't just another tabloid theory or idle online speculation. This is the claim now being made, publicly and unflinchingly, by one of the most controversial and connected royal commentators alive today, Lady Colin Campbell. Known to many as Lady C, she's no stranger to royal secrets, aristocratic scandal, and media firestorms. But her most recent allegation may be the boldest and most dangerous yet. According to Lady C, the birth of Lilibet Diana Mountbatten-Windsor, the daughter of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, may not have happened the way the world was led to believe. In fact, she suggests it may not have happened at all, at least not in the way the Sussexes claimed. Her accusation hinges on a shocking and specific detail that Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, the private California medical center where Meghan was said to have given birth in June 2021, has no official record of a live birth under Meghan Markle's name on the date listed on Lilibet's publicly filed birth certificate. If true, this isn't just a discrepancy. It's a potentially criminal fabrication, one that could call into question not only the legitimacy of the document itself, but also the integrity of the royal family's youngest generation and the character of two of its most polarizing members. The implications are staggering. The video you're about to watch will take you deep into a tangled web of hospital records, royal traditions, public announcements, and media manipulation. We'll explore the context behind Lady C's claim, examine what the law says about birth registration in California, and investigate what it really means when no trace of a birth appears in hospital logs or public databases. We'll confront the questions no one else is asking out loud. Why would a couple as high-profile as Harry and Meghan fake a birth record? What would they stand to gain? Who helped them? Or who turned a blind eye? And what happens next if this accusation gains traction with the public, or worse, with legal authorities? But before we explore those answers, we need to start with what made this moment so extraordinary to begin with. Let's go back to June 4th, 2021, the day the world believed Meghan Markle gave birth to her daughter, Lilibet Diana. It was a Friday afternoon when the announcement broke. Short, polished, and carefully worded, the couple's Archwell Foundation issued a statement that Meghan had given birth to a healthy baby girl at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital in Santa Barbara, California. The baby, they said, was born at 11:40 a.m. and weighed 7 pounds, 11 ounces. She was named Lilibet after Queen Elizabeth II's childhood nickname, and Diana after Harry's late mother. At first, the announcement seemed to be met with widespread celebration. The name Lilibet dominated headlines for days. Journalists and royal fans debated its appropriateness. Was it touching or tone-deaf? Meghan supporters praised the couple's decision to honor the Queen and Princess Diana in one gesture. Critics, especially in the UK press, questioned whether the Queen had even consented to her nickname being used. But through it all, the birth itself was largely accepted as fact. No one thought to question the hospital. No one thought to ask whether a child had actually been born under the name Rachel Meghan Markle at that location on that day. Until now. Lady C's claim changes everything. And it's not based on theory, it's based on the absence of proof. She alleges that inquiries made directly and through third parties to Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital have turned up nothing. No live birth listed under Meghan's name on the date in question. No hospital logs. No medical staff testimonials. No internally filed case records that match the reported details of the birth. Not even an anonymous leak, something that's almost unheard of when it comes to celebrity births, especially at an institution with a track record of A-list patients. Instead, there's only silence. And in the case of public records, silence is its own kind of evidence. Now, it's important to state from the outset, hospitals are not permitted to share personal medical information without a patient's explicit consent. HIPAA laws are strict, and for good reason. But what Lady C is pointing to isn't a violation of privacy, it's the complete absence of a corresponding legal record. A lack of confirmation in the public domain, when such records should exist, and when they do for other births that occurred on the same day in that same facility. This raises a critical question. Was a different name used? Was the birth registered under a pseudonym? If so, why wasn't this disclosed? And how would that pseudonym be reconciled with the publicly filed birth certificate, which clearly lists Meghan's full legal name? Lady C argues that this inconsistency is not just a clerical issue. She says it's deliberate and damning. To make matters more complex, Lilibet Diana's birth certificate was released weeks after the birth, not days, another deviation from normal protocol for a couple so media-savvy. And when it was released, it was immediately met with criticism, not just because of the formatting, which some claimed was inconsistent with typical Santa Barbara County documents, but because of what it didn't show. For example, Meghan's name appeared as Rachel Meghan Markle, without a hyphenated or married name. Prince Harry, meanwhile, was listed as the Duke of Sussex, a detail that raised eyebrows among those familiar with the formatting rules of U.S. birth records, which typically avoid the inclusion of aristocratic or ceremonial titles. Still, most of this was chalked up to privacy concerns, or perhaps just legal anomalies. But in light of Lady C's revelation, these details now take on new significance. Could it be that the birth certificate itself was created without a corresponding hospital record? Could it have been constructed with information not verified by medical professionals, but submitted by private individuals under penalty of perjury, trusting that no one would ever dig deep enough to challenge it? The danger in this scenario is enormous. Not only would it imply perjury, it would also call into question the integrity of the systems meant to protect identity, citizenship, and legal status in both the US and the UK. Because Lilibet Diana isn't just a celebrity child. She is the daughter of a prince. She is seventh in line to the British throne. She holds US citizenship and, if the birth happened as claimed, is entitled to royal titles and potential government benefits in 2 countries. If the birth is fake, or the certificate forged, it isn't just a personal scandal. It's a constitutional dilemma. Of course, none of this could be explored if not for the fact that Harry and Meghan have built an empire on their public narrative. They have, through Netflix, Spotify, public speeches, and multi-million-dollar media deals, leveraged their personal story for financial and reputational gain. They speak frequently of truth, of lived experience, of breaking away from the constraints of royal life to live in transparency. And yet, this alleged deception, if proven, would suggest something far more cynical, that they have presented a version of their life carefully curated to evoke sympathy, admiration, and emotional investment from the public, even if it meant bending or hiding the truth. And now, with Lady C's claim gaining traction, the stakes have never been higher. If what she alleges is accurate, then the entire foundation of Lilibet Diana's public existence may be built on fiction. A fiction that was protected by media silence, PR control, legal intimidation, and public goodwill until now. In this investigation, we will leave no stone unturned. We will examine the hospital's procedures. We will speak to legal experts about the implications of filing false birth documents. We'll compare Meghan's known public movements to the timeline of the alleged birth. We'll revisit the photos, the statements, and the long trail of inconsistencies that, until recently, were dismissed as tabloid noise. We'll look at similar cases, both among royals and celebrities, where the truth eventually came out. And at the heart of it all will be one unrelenting question. What if the birth of Lilibet Diana, the most closely guarded secret of Meghan and Harry's post-royal life, never happened the way we were told? What if the lie was hidden not in a headline, but in a certificate? Lady Colin Campbell, a name that evokes equal parts intrigue and controversy, has once again thrown a match into the powder keg of royal speculation. Known for her unapologetic candor and high society credentials, Lady C has long been a figure both revered and reviled within royal commentary circles. But even for a woman who has accused princes of secret affairs and claimed knowledge of palace betrayals, her most recent allegation is perhaps her boldest yet. That the birth certificate of Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's daughter, is a fabrication. This is not a casual remark, nor a vague suggestion. Lady C states with precision and clarity that Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, the facility listed as the place of Lilibet's birth, holds no official hospital record of a live birth under Meghan Markle's name on June 4, 2021. According to her, that gap in documentation points not to administrative oversight, but to something much darker, an intentional deception at the highest levels of celebrity and royal media manipulation. To truly understand the weight of this claim, one must first appreciate who Lady C is and why her words cannot be dismissed outright. Lady Colin Campbell, born Georgia Jidi in Jamaica and married briefly into British aristocracy, has cultivated a reputation as a royal historian, author, and provocateur. Her biography of Princess Diana, published in 1992 before Diana's divorce or death, was initially derided, only to later be proven startlingly accurate on several key points. Her subsequent books, including controversial takes on Meghan Markle, Prince Andrew, and the Queen Mother, have earned her both devoted readers and vehement critics. But above all, they've earned her attention and access. Her connections, though often dismissed by traditional royal commentators, run deep in the elite social circles that intersect with the aristocracy, media, and high society in both the UK and abroad. Lady C has long claimed that Meghan Markle has used deceit and calculation to infiltrate and manipulate the royal family's public image. She has made no secret of her disdain for what she calls Meghan's narcissistic ambitions and Hollywood theatrics. But until now, her commentary has stayed within the realm of motive, perception, and character. With this latest allegation, she is not talking about personality, she is talking about forgery. She made the accusation in a recent video on her popular YouTube channel, where she often shares unfiltered views on royal happenings. In that video, which quickly went viral among royal-watching communities and conspiracy forums alike, Lady C claimed that investigators working independently had attempted to verify the birth of Lilibet Diana by contacting Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital directly. What they allegedly found, or more accurately, didn't find shocked them. There was no record of Meghan Markle, legally known as Rachel Meghan Markle, being admitted on the date of June 4, 2021. No record of her being listed in the maternity unit. No staff who recalled the high-profile delivery. No trace in the hospital's public birth announcements or archived delivery records. Though such records are typically confidential under HIPAA, hospitals frequently list anonymized or public announcements, especially for VIPs who choose to go public. For a birth that was announced with such fanfare, at such a prestigious hospital, the silence was deafening. Lady C did not stop at merely stating this void. She elaborated, stating that the lack of any corresponding birth registration, especially when cross-checked with local public records and birth registries, strongly suggested the possibility that Lilibet was either born via a surrogate and never disclosed, or not born at that hospital at all. The implication? That the birth certificate released weeks after the fact could have been crafted to fit a narrative, not to reflect a reality. To substantiate her claims, Lady C has pointed to a constellation of irregularities surrounding Lilibet's birth. First, the timing. The birth was not announced until 2 days after the date listed on the certificate. An unusually long delay for such a public couple, especially compared to the media strategy surrounding their son Archie. With Archie, Meghan and Harry made a point of publicly acknowledging the birth within hours, releasing carefully worded updates and images shortly thereafter. With Lilibet, however, the tone was quieter, more calculated, and entirely controlled through their personal PR machine, Archwell. Second, the setting. Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital is indeed a well-regarded facility in Southern California, but it is not known as a go-to location for ultra-high-profile births. Other celebrities who've given birth in Los Angeles or Santa Barbara tend to do so in ultra-private wings at facilities designed for complete secrecy. And yet, no reports emerged of Meghan's security detail arriving at the hospital. No local media stationed reporters there. No photos surfaced, even of decoy vehicles. For a couple as closely watched as Harry and Meghan, the total lack of media presence or hospital leaks is bizarre, especially considering the media swarm that had surrounded their first pregnancy. Third, the document itself. The birth certificate of Lilibet Diana, when eventually made public, raised numerous questions. For one, it lists Harry as the Duke of Sussex rather than using a legal surname. Some commentators immediately raised concerns about whether California vital records accept aristocratic titles in place of legal names. Others questioned the formatting, which did not appear to align perfectly with standard Santa Barbara-issued birth certificates made available in the same time period. While none of these issues prove falsification, they added to an already growing pile of irregularities. Lady C took it even further. In her video, she claimed that if no hospital record exists, then the birth certificate may have been generated through a delayed registration process, a mechanism that allows parents to register a birth after the fact, under penalty of perjury, but without needing direct medical documentation if done under certain conditions. Could this have been the route taken by the Sussexes? If so, what were they hiding? Lady C's suggestion is chilling, that the birth certificate was filed using personal affidavits, not hospital verification, and that such filings, while legal under certain circumstances, could easily allow individuals to backfill a birth story. In other words, if a child was born via a surrogate, overseas, or even earlier or later than claimed, the certificate, filed days or weeks later, could be tailored to reflect a narrative, not a factual timeline. She also suggested, though without naming names, that there are legal advisors and consultants in California who specialize in helping wealthy clients manage such paperwork, especially in cases involving surrogacy, secrecy, or legal complexity. If such professionals were involved, the deception could have been executed under full compliance with the law, but with devastating consequences to public trust. And that, she argued, is the point. Not whether the document was technically legal, but whether it was morally truthful. Lady C's words were precise. What the public has been given may be legally filed, but that doesn't mean it reflects reality. If Meghan Markle did not give birth on June 4th at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, then what we have is not a mistake. It's a deliberate misrepresentation. And if that's the case, it's not just scandalous. It's fraudulent. Her critics, of course, wasted no time dismissing the allegation. Detractors claimed she was chasing relevance, that she had no access to hospital data and was merely speculating, that even if Meghan had used a different name or went to a different facility, that didn't prove wrongdoing. But here's the issue. Lady C has been right before. Her early claims about Princess Diana's mental health struggles, about royal family dynamics, and about Meghan and Harry's internal clashes with palace staff, many were mocked at the time, only to be quietly confirmed months or years later. Her sources, however unconventional, have proven to be reliable more than once. And now, she's making what may be her most verifiable accusation yet. Unlike character speculation or behind-closed-door gossip, the existence or absence of a birth record is an objective fact. If what she claims is true, that there is no official trace of Meghan Markle's delivery at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, then this is a case not of rumor, but of record. A record that appears to be missing. To understand the full weight of Lady Colin Campbell's explosive allegation, we must turn our attention to the facility at the center of her claim, Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. According to the official birth certificate of Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor, this is the hospital where Meghan Markle gave birth on June 4, 2021. But now, that record is under intense scrutiny. Lady C alleges that no documentation of a live birth under Meghan's legal name, Rachel Meghan Markle, exists in that facility on the date in question. This section delves into the heart of the matter: what is known, what is standard, what is missing, and why Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital has become the unlikely ground zero of a growing international controversy. Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital is not your average community medical center. Located in a picturesque stretch of California's Central Coast, the hospital is known for its high-end care and patient privacy. With over 500 beds, a Level 1 trauma center, and a respected maternity unit, Cottage serves a wide array of patients from everyday residents to discreet Hollywood elite. It's not surprising, then, that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, who had relocated to nearby Montecito in 2020, would choose this facility if indeed Meghan gave birth in California. The hospital has a long history of offering luxury-level care to high-profile individuals. Its staff are trained in discretion, and its records are locked down behind layers of legal protections. But even in such an environment, there are expectations, procedures that cannot simply be bypassed without raising questions. Normally, when a woman gives birth at a hospital in California, a series of steps occurs. Medical professionals complete a certificate of live birth on-site, typically within 24 to 48 hours. That certificate includes details about the child, the parents, and the delivery. It is then submitted to the California Department of Public Health and registered in county and state databases. The hospital retains copies, and a public record of the birth, minus private medical details, is generally accessible. In the case of Lilibet Diana, the official birth certificate lists Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital as the place of birth. It was signed and filed within the expected timeframe. But according to Lady C, and to several researchers and independent investigators who have since attempted to verify her claim, no hospital record exists to corroborate the certificate. The most serious of these claims is that a direct inquiry to the hospital was met not with a no comment or standard HIPAA disclaimer, but with the chilling statement, "There is no patient of that name registered in our system for June 4, 2021. This, if true, is not a casual oversight. It's a factual contradiction. While privacy laws prevent hospitals from confirming specific births to unauthorized parties, they rarely, if ever, state outright that a patient wasn't admitted unless such a declaration is safe, accurate, and legally justified. Some defenders of Meghan Markle argue that a different name may have been used, that pseudonyms are common among high-profile clients. And this is true, to an extent. Celebrities often check into maternity units under aliases to avoid paparazzi leaks or fanfare. But this only raises another glaring issue. If a pseudonym was used for hospital entry, why was Meghan's full legal name used on the birth certificate? Wouldn't the birth documentation, sourced from the hospital records, reflect the alias instead? California law allows parents to self-report a birth only under limited circumstances, typically for home births or situations where the mother was not attended by licensed personnel. If Meghan did not deliver at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, and no other hospital has claimed her, then did she deliver at home? If so, why claim otherwise? A deeper look into Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital's standard procedures adds more fuel to the fire. Sources familiar with the facility's practices confirm that births are recorded with strict precision. Even when pseudonyms are used for privacy, the hospital must record the actual legal identity of the mother and child before a birth can be registered with the state. This information is not shared publicly, but it exists in their internal databases and is confirmed via ID, insurance, and medical file tracking. For someone as publicly known as Meghan Markle, those protocols would have been even more tightly controlled. Staff members would have been briefed, entry points secured, documentation double-checked. Yet according to what Lady C claims, none of that happened. Further complicating the matter is the complete absence of eyewitness accounts, both from hospital staff and from third parties. For a couple as scrutinized as Harry and Meghan, it is statistically improbable that a hospital visit would go entirely unnoticed, unrecorded, and unphotographed. There were no leaks from the maternity ward. No reports of unusual security activity at the hospital. No photos of Meghan entering or leaving the building. In contrast, during Archie's birth in London, even with intense privacy controls in place, photographers captured convoy movements and speculated on timelines. With Lilibet, there was silence. One staff member at a neighboring hospital in Santa Barbara, speaking under condition of anonymity, remarked, "You always hear whispers. Even when someone famous tries to hide it, word gets around. But with Meghan? Nothing. It's like it never happened. So how could this be possible?" One theory gaining traction is that the birth was indeed private, but not because it occurred at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. Instead, some suggest that the delivery took place at a private residence or undisclosed facility, and the hospital was listed post facto to avoid media suspicion or intrusive questions about alternative birth arrangements. But again, this presents a serious issue. If no staff at the hospital were involved, then the use of that hospital's name on the certificate may constitute false information. According to California Health and Safety Code Section 103430, it is unlawful to falsify or forge information on a vital record, including a birth certificate. While the punishment ranges depending on intent and outcome, the law is clear. Vital records must accurately reflect the facts of the event. If Meghan did not give birth at the listed hospital, and no attending medical professionals from that facility were present, then the certificate's accuracy is legally questionable. Investigative researchers have taken to requesting general birth data from the county for the date in question. While names are often redacted for privacy, patterns can be observed. For June 4, 2021, several births were listed at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, but no anonymized entry appears to match the known details of Lilibet's birth, time, weight, maternal age, etc. In fact, Some researchers claim that a gap exists in the data where Lilibet's record should appear, suggesting it was either withheld or never filed correctly. And then there's the matter of the birth certificate signature. The document was signed not by a medical professional, but by a registrar. While this is not uncommon, it can suggest that the certificate was processed through administrative means rather than issued by hospital staff directly, again reinforcing the idea that the document may not reflect an on-site delivery. Lady C supporters argue that the hospital's absence of confirmation, paired with these irregularities, points to one conclusion: the hospital was never involved. Could there have been a home birth? It's possible. Could a surrogate have been used? That too is within the realm of possibility, though it introduces its own complications, including legal filings and parental claims. But if either of those things occurred, then why would Meghan and Harry state otherwise? Why name a hospital that wasn't used? Why release a certificate that can now be disputed? Silence from Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital only deepens the mystery. Their media office has refused to comment. Staff members have remained uniformly tight-lipped. No doctors, nurses, or technicians have come forward, not to verify, not to deny, not even to suggest no comment. In the age of digital footprints and social media leaks, this level of silence is almost unnatural. And yet, it is this silence that is perhaps the most telling of all. Because if Meghan Markle did give birth at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, then the facility would at least be able to confirm a generic statement that it has no comment on patient privacy or cannot confirm details. But according to Lady C, the response has not even met that basic standard, which strongly suggests that no birth was recorded in their system under the name Meghan Markle. As this investigation continues to build momentum, the spotlight now turns toward the next logical questions. If the hospital wasn't involved, then who was? If no delivery occurred at Cottage, then where did it take place, and under what circumstances? And if deception occurred at the administrative level, who signed off on it, and why? Because this much is clear: if Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital was falsely listed, someone knows, and someone approved it. In any system of law, governance, or civil life, records are everything. They serve as evidence, accountability, and the foundation upon which decisions, legal, political, social, are built. When something as fundamental as a birth goes unrecorded or shows contradictions, alarm bells ring. That is exactly what Lady Colin Campbell's claim has triggered. The alleged absence of a hospital record for the birth of Lilibet Diana is not just a logistical error. It is, if accurate, a deeply disturbing development that calls into question the veracity of what has been presented to the public as unquestionable truth. In this section, we will explore the implications of that missing record, legally, politically, morally, and publicly. We will also examine what happens when something as elemental as birth becomes entangled in secrecy, spin, and silence. To begin, let's start with the fundamental question: what is a birth record, and why does its absence matter? A birth record is more than a piece of paper. It is the state's first recognition of a person's existence. It establishes identity, citizenship, parentage, and access to rights. Without a valid birth record, an individual may face barriers to travel, education, health care, legal status, and inheritance. It is also the foundation upon which all other identity documents are built. Passports, social security cards, national insurance numbers, and so on. In the case of Lilibet Diana, a birth certificate was indeed released, one that listed Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital as the place of delivery, Prince Harry as the Duke of Sussex, and Meghan Markle under her full legal name, Rachel Meghan Markle. The document appeared to fulfill the required standards on the surface. But if, as Lady C alleges, there is no hospital record to back it up, then the certificate may rest on shaky ground. Why? Because the birth certificate is not the same as the hospital record. A hospital record documents what actually happened: the patient's admittance, the timing of labor, who attended the birth, the APGAR score, the method of delivery, any complications, the presence of any medical interventions, and postnatal care. It's a comprehensive and objective document stored within the hospital's private system and later referenced, often directly, in the process of creating the official state-issued birth certificate. In contrast, a birth certificate is a civil registration, created based on the information provided by medical staff or the parents and filed with the county or state. While it is a legal document, it depends on the integrity of the information used to generate it. In most cases, the birth certificate is filled out by hospital staff using verified patient records. But when a hospital record does not exist, or when a child is born outside of a licensed medical setting, the certificate must rely on parent-submitted affidavits or statements under penalty of perjury. These special case filings are rare, and they are heavily scrutinized. If Lilibet's birth certificate was created without a corresponding hospital record, that suggests one of three things. Meghan did not give birth at the listed hospital. A surrogate gave birth in a private, undisclosed setting. The information provided on the certificate was inaccurate, incomplete, or deliberately misleading. Any of these possibilities open a Pandora's box of consequences, not just for Harry and Meghan, but for institutions on both sides of the Atlantic. Let's begin with legal implications in the United States. Under California law, it is a felony to knowingly falsify information on a vital record. The penalty may include fines, jail time, or the revocation of the falsified document. Moreover, submitting false birth information can trigger investigations by family services, immigration authorities, if applicable, and the county registrar's office. In practice, such cases are rare, but not unprecedented. There have been multiple documented instances in the state of California where celebrities, wealthy families, or undocumented individuals attempted to manipulate birth documents for reasons ranging from inheritance claims to social cover-ups. When discovered, the consequences were severe. In this case, the added complexity is the international dimension. Lilibet Diana, by virtue of her parentage, is not just a U.S. citizen. She is also eligible, under the royal line of succession, to inherit royal titles and status under UK constitutional law. While the Sussexes have stepped back from royal duties, their children remain part of the lineage. As of now, Lilibet is seventh in line to the throne. That means any deception about her birth is not just a domestic issue, it is a matter that potentially undermines constitutional integrity in the UK. Were a member of the public or the media able to legally prove that Lilibet's birth certificate is invalid, or that it was filed using knowingly false information, the implications for royal legitimacy would be staggering. It could lead to calls for her removal from the line of succession, public debates about the status of her titles, and further questions about the couple's entire narrative since leaving royal life. The British monarchy, already under stress from internal family disputes, reputational crises, and modern criticism, would face yet another storm. The Crown has historically treated birth and succession with utmost seriousness, and for good reason. Errors or uncertainties about birthrights in the past have led to wars, abdications, and national crises. While modern monarchy is symbolic rather than governing, legitimacy remains a sacred foundation. But legalities aside, the public trust is perhaps the most endangered by this potential scandal. When Prince Harry and Meghan Markle stepped back from royal duties in 2020, they made one promise repeatedly: that they would live in truth. That phrase, "our truth," was uttered in interviews, documentaries, and speeches. It became their brand identity, especially after their explosive Oprah Winfrey interview, where they painted the British press and parts of the royal family as hostile, racist, and deceitful. But if they themselves fabricated a detail as serious as their daughter's birth, if they invented a delivery location, crafted a narrative, and filed a potentially false public document, then their entire brand becomes vulnerable. Our truth cannot stand alongside proven deception. This is where the power of media manipulation becomes critical. From the beginning, Meghan and Harry have used tightly managed PR channels to control their image. The announcement of Lilibet's birth was crafted and distributed through Archewell, their media and charity foundation. No external press were invited. No independent verification was allowed. The photo release of a staged birthday portrait occurred almost a full year later. All information passed through a single gate, their team. That level of control, while perhaps understandable in an age of tabloid harassment, also means that they carry the full weight of responsibility. There was no third-party journalist to blame for inaccuracies. No palace intermediary to deflect blame. If the hospital didn't log the birth, and no other facility has evidence, and the certificate is questioned, it all lands squarely on them. Yet, in the absence of immediate consequences, one must ask, why do birth records even matter in the court of public opinion? The answer lies in precedent. We live in an age where authenticity is currency. Celebrities, especially those who speak openly about privacy, mental health, and motherhood, are expected to be honest. If Meghan, who has written about miscarriage, spoken about the trauma of motherhood, and aligned herself with causes for women's health, is found to have misrepresented her own birth experience, the betrayal would be enormous. It would not be about the legal technicality. It would be about public integrity. There is also the matter of inheritance and trust funds. Many members of the royal family receive or manage assets held in trust. These accounts often depend on accurate documentation of birth and identity. Should the document be found questionable, it could affect Lilibet's access to certain financial or ceremonial rights. Finally, the symbolic cost must be considered. Lilibet Diana was named after Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Diana, two of the most emotionally resonant figures in British history. The name was clearly chosen to evoke legacy, continuity, and emotional redemption. For many supporters, the birth was a hopeful moment, a bridge between old and new, tradition and reinvention. If that symbolic event is now marred by allegations of fabrication, the damage to the Sussex narrative could be irreversible. It calls into question everything they've sold, not just a photo or a story, but an identity. What happens next will depend on evidence. At present, Lady C's claims remain controversial and unconfirmed. But even the presence of such a claim, backed by research and internal inconsistencies, is enough to shake public confidence. Journalists, legal analysts, and digital investigators are already digging deeper. If someone uncovers official documents, contradictory filings, or insider testimony, this story will escalate fast. Because if the record of Lilibet's birth is missing, then the truth may be as well. In any major controversy involving public figures, one of the first things investigators, journalists, and analysts examine is the paper trail. Documents, especially official ones, are presumed to be concrete. They are supposed to represent reality. And yet, with increasing frequency, even those once considered unshakable are being questioned. This brings us to one of the most puzzling pieces of the Lilibet Diana mystery. The birth certificate released by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. What was presented to the public in 2021 appeared, at first glance, to be straightforward, a California birth certificate issued for the couple's daughter, born on June 4th at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. But what was intended to shut down speculation may have done the opposite. Upon close inspection, the certificate is riddled with anomalies. Some subtle, some glaring, all worth examining. This section will dissect the certificate line by line, exploring what was written, what was omitted, and what doesn't seem to add up, all in light of Lady Colin Campbell's bombshell claim that the document may not be what it seems. Let's begin with the core inconsistencies that experts and online sleuths have highlighted. 1. The use of titles, Duke and Duchess, on a legal document. The most immediately striking element on the birth certificate is the way the parents' names are presented. Rather than using standard naming conventions as most birth certificates do, the document lists. Father's name is Royal Highness the Duke of Sussex. Mother's name, Rachel Meghan Markle. This raises a legal and procedural issue. In California, legal documents typically require full legal names, not honorifics, not titles. The Duke of Sussex is not a legal name. It's a hereditary title, recognized in the UK, but not necessarily relevant under US law. Harry's legal name is Henry Charles Albert David. He may be styled differently in public life, but for legal paperwork, especially vital records, the actual legal name should be used. Critics have questioned why Harry did not use his birth name, while Meghan's appears in its proper legal form. Why the discrepancy? More curiously, this is not the same pattern followed on their son Archie's UK birth certificate. When Archie was born in 2019, Meghan listed her name as Rachel Meghan Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. Later, her royal status was removed. But in that UK document, there was consistency. Full legal names and titles were used in tandem. Here, we have a divergence. Why? If this certificate was drafted with legal precision by hospital staff or a registrar, why would it reflect such a dramatic inconsistency in parental names? 2. Absence of the registrar's signature from the hospital. Another striking detail, the certificate was not signed by a hospital official or attending physician. Instead, it was signed by an official registrar, a local official whose job is to process birth certificates filed through non-standard procedures. This typically occurs in cases of home births, delayed filings, or when the delivery took place in a setting outside a formal medical institution. Why would a birth certificate for a supposedly hospital-delivered child be handled in this way? If Meghan delivered Lilibet at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, the attending physician or hospital administrator would usually complete the certificate, submit it through hospital channels, and it would bear their sign-off. Instead, we see the name of an administrative registrar, not affiliated with the hospital, completing and signing the document. This is a red flag. 3. Hospital coding and form version anomalies. Online analysts have also observed that the coding on Lilibet's birth certificate, such as the form version number and administrative stamps, appears to differ slightly from those found on other Santa Barbara-issued birth certificates from the same period. One document, reportedly issued for another child born on the same day at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, shows a different version control number on the certificate form. While it's possible that multiple versions exist concurrently, the discrepancy raises questions about how the document was generated, whether it was part of a standard batch, and whether the form was initiated from a hospital terminal or through another channel. It is well known that California operates an electronic birth registration system, EBRS. Births are logged by authorized facilities and routed to county registrars. The fact that Lilibet's certificate emerged without standard features consistent with EBRS formatting fuels suspicion that it may have been prepared via a manual exception process, something that, while technically legal, is uncommon for a supposedly in-hospital birth. 4. Missing metadata and filing traceability. Journalists investigating the release of the certificate noted a lack of metadata in the official filing. Typically, digital certificates logged through the EBRS system contain internal coding that links them to hospital-issued databases. Timestamps, terminal numbers, or source IDs that help auditors track where and how the certificate was generated. Lilibet's certificate lacks clear traceability in this regard. It was not publicly verified through state or hospital interfaces, nor was it confirmed via standard birth data summary reports issued monthly by the California Department of Public Health. When public records requests were filed to confirm birth listings for June 4, 2021, at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, no record matching Meghan Markle's details appeared in the anonymized birth indexes. While the state can redact private data, patterns typically align. In this case, they didn't. 5. Timing and public release gaps. Another issue, the certificate was not publicly acknowledged or released immediately after the birth. There was a notable delay between the announcement of Lilibet's birth and the sharing of official documentation. In contrast, most public figures, when disclosing birth details, follow up quickly with proof, even a redacted version, to satisfy media queries and maintain credibility. Why the hesitation? Why the delay? Some defenders of Harry and Meghan suggest they wanted privacy. But privacy doesn't preclude standard procedure. Filing a certificate and quietly registering the birth would have satisfied legal requirements without public fanfare. Instead, the Sussexes opted for a slow-release strategy, one that appeared more media-managed than medically confirmed. 6. Lack of witness or supporting party details. Normally, birth certificates list witnesses or secondary parties, especially in home births or situations requiring notarized confirmation. These may include the attending midwife, doula, or second parent. In Lilibet's certificate, none of this appears. No doctor is listed. No secondary verification. Just the names of the parents and the registrar. Again, for a hospital birth. At a major medical facility, this is strange. So what could explain all of these discrepancies? There are a few possibilities. Private home birth. If Meghan delivered at home, the document would need to be filed separately and manually. But if this was the case, why claim hospital delivery? Surrogacy arrangement. This would complicate registration. Legal transfer of parental rights requires separate documentation. If surrogacy was involved and not declared, it would require deliberate omission or fabrication. PR management over procedure. Perhaps Harry and Meghan attempted to craft a narrative, naming a respected hospital for optics, without completing the legal steps that typically accompany such a delivery. Clerical oversight or custom agreement with county. While unlikely, it's possible the couple arranged a unique method of registration with the county to protect privacy. But this still wouldn't explain the lack of supporting metadata, inconsistent naming conventions, and absence of hospital confirmation. The implications of a faulty or falsified certificate are enormous. If proven, it could constitute perjury under California Civil Code, if knowingly submitted with false information. Loss of U.S. citizenship rights for the child if her birth claim is found illegitimate. Damage to parental custody rights if another biological mother is legally identified. Removal from royal succession due to eligibility violations. Public and legal inquiry into Archwell's media portrayal of private matters. At a symbolic level, it would fracture the very foundation of the couple's public image, truth-tellers, victims of deception, and proud parents sharing their joy with the world. Because if the birth certificate is false, even in part, then every other truth becomes fair game. When Lady Colin Campbell speaks, the world listens. Not because she shouts the loudest, but because her claims often carry the weight of deep connections and unapologetic truth-telling. A controversial figure to some, and a royal insider to others, Lady C has long positioned herself as the voice unafraid to challenge the official narrative, particularly when it comes to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Her latest revelation, that the birth certificate of Lilibet Diana is potentially fabricated, is more than sensational. It's based, she claims, on direct investigative access and verified hospital records. But how exactly did she obtain this evidence? And why is it so important? To understand the magnitude of this revelation, we must first consider who Lady Colin Campbell is, and what makes her an authoritative voice in royal matters. Lady C, a Jamaican-born British aristocrat, author, and socialite, is no stranger to controversy. Her biography of Princess Diana in the 1990s broke ground for its raw, unvarnished portrayal of the monarchy. While initially met with denial, much of what she alleged was later confirmed by other sources. Her books, including Meghan and Harry, The Real Story, have sold millions and made her a lightning rod for royal drama, respected by some, reviled by others. But through it all, her access to upper echelon insiders, her ties to former palace staff, and her relentless pursuit of documentation have made her a formidable force. So when Lady C publicly claimed that Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital has no record of Meghan Markle giving birth to Lilibet Diana on June 4, 2021, people took notice and demanded proof. According to Lady C, the starting point of her investigation was a timeline inconsistency. She noticed that the announcement of the birth came unusually late compared to royal standards. Not within hours or the same day, as is custom, but 2 full days after the birth allegedly occurred. This was out of character for a royal family, even for one attempting to live privately. Moreover, there were no accompanying press pool reports, no on-site media coverage, and no verification from hospital staff. Highly unusual for such a high-profile birth, even in the United States. Curious about the unusual quiet surrounding the event, Lady C began her inquiry. She first contacted public record offices and media correspondents in the Santa Barbara area. According to her statements, she then filed a California Public Records Act request, asking for confirmation of all live births logged on June 4, 2021, at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, the facility where Meghan was claimed to have delivered. This is where things took a turn. The response reportedly showed no birth record for any child registered under the name Rachel Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, or even under the first name Lilibet. In fact, the number of births recorded that day was lower than average, and none of them matched the identifying details of the royal couple. But skeptics might argue, what if the birth was listed under a private name, a different surname, or under protective privacy laws? Lady C anticipated that objection. According to her televised statement, she then went further, reaching out to hospital staff, off the record. These staff members, whose identities she has kept confidential, allegedly confirmed what the public record suggested. Meghan Markle was not admitted to Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital on June 4, 2021. No medical records, no security entry logs, no labor and delivery entries, nothing. This lack of presence in a highly secure medical facility was unusual. For most high-profile patients, security logs are tightly kept and include visitor records, time of entry and exit, attending nurses and physicians, and even digital swipe logs used to enter secured floors. But in Meghan's case, there was no electronic footprint at all, according to Lady C's sources. This startling finding prompted Lady C to consult with a former senior administrator from another hospital in Los Angeles. She wanted to know, how easy is it to fake or bypass birth records? The answer? Not very. In California, the process of registering a birth, especially in a licensed medical facility, is highly regulated. From the moment a patient is admitted, a chain of documentation begins. Medical record numbers, diagnosis codes, and delivery room data feed into the EBRS system. In order for a hospital to hide or remove such a record, it would require the active cooperation of multiple administrators, something incredibly difficult to achieve without whistleblowers or traces. But what about the argument that a surrogate was used and her identity was shielded? This too, Lady C addressed. She reached out to two California-based legal experts who specialize in reproductive law and surrogacy contracts. According to these experts, if Meghan and Harry had used a surrogate, they would have needed to file a pre-birth order, a legal filing that allows intended parents to be named on the child's birth certificate before the child is born. This process, while legal in California, leaves behind public court filings, often under seal, but traceable through docket numbers and court calendars. Lady C's legal investigators searched the Santa Barbara County and Los Angeles Superior Court systems for any pre-birth orders filed by individuals matching Harry or Meghan's names or aliases. Once again, nothing surfaced. If a surrogate was used and a pre-birth order wasn't filed, the certificate would have required a post-birth adoption procedure, which again would leave a legal paper trail. But Lady C claims no such trail exists. With no hospital record, no surrogate filing, and no adoption documentation, Lady C concludes that the certificate and the entire narrative surrounding the birth is almost certainly fabricated, or at the very least, highly misleading. But what motivated her to come forward now? In her words, the tipping point was the emotional manipulation of the public. She stated in a YouTube interview, "It's not just about lying to the crown or the press. It's about deceiving millions of people who placed emotional investment into a child named after our late queen. That kind of deception, if proven, deserves exposure." Lady C also noted the media's silence surrounding the matter. While fringe outlets and online researchers have raised questions, most mainstream media have avoided the topic, possibly for fear of legal retaliation or reputational damage. But Lady C, unafraid of lawsuits and bolstered by her past legal wins, decided she would be the one to bring it to light. Her plan now includes publishing a detailed account in her upcoming book and possibly releasing redacted hospital correspondence if she can receive proper legal cover to do so. To further back up her findings, Lady C hinted at collaborating with a US-based journalist who specializes in FOIA filings. The journalist, she claims, is currently preparing a legal challenge to obtain redacted metadata from Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital's system that may show if a record was created and then removed or never existed in the first place. That would be a game changer. For now, her evidence remains circumstantial but consistent. And given her track record, many believe she's just getting started. This isn't just a tabloid tidbit, it's a potential crisis of truth for two of the most watched figures in the world. Inside the centuries-old stone walls of Windsor Castle and the polished oak-paneled offices of Buckingham Palace, the monarchy has long followed a cardinal rule. Never complain, never explain. This enduring philosophy, rooted in the monarchy's need for permanence, control, and dignity, has served Queen Elizabeth II, and now King Charles III, through turbulent times. But when it comes to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's growing list of controversies, especially the latest bombshell about Lilibet Diana's birth certificate, the rulebook has been quietly tested. Behind the scenes, sources close to royal aides, former courtiers, and family confidants reveal a picture of private alarm, strategic silence, and quiet investigation. Though the palace has yet to issue a formal response, the allegations have not gone unnoticed, and they have deeply shaken the already fraying relationship between Harry, Meghan, and the royal household. Let's unpack how the royal family has reportedly reacted, not publicly, but internally, to Lady Colin Campbell's claim that the birth certificate of Lilibet Diana is potentially fraudulent. 1. Initial shock and disbelief. When Lady C first began teasing her findings, through podcast interviews and YouTube appearances, palace officials reportedly monitored the situation but did not act. Lady C has made sensational claims before, and at first, this appeared to be more of the same. But when the specific accusation dropped that Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital had no record of Meghan Markle giving birth on June 4, 2021, senior courtiers reportedly escalated the concern to senior advisors inside the Privy Council office, which oversees matters relating to constitutional affairs and royal succession. This was no longer just about optics. It touched directly on lineage, legitimacy, and the royal line of succession. If Lilibet's birth certificate was indeed falsified, it would have profound implications, legally, diplomatically, and historically. According to one former courtier, speaking anonymously, there was a moment of sheer disbelief. Not because people assumed it was true, but because it would be catastrophic if it were. 2. Quiet consultation with legal experts. Within days of Lady C's statement gaining traction, the palace reportedly engaged in discreet consultations with two sets of advisors, legal experts in constitutional law and child registration law, and diplomatic advisors familiar with dual nationality and U.S. legal frameworks. Why? Because the situation, though embarrassing, could potentially grow into a constitutional crisis if not handled carefully. The monarchy, by its very design, depends on clearly recorded lines of descent. If Lilibet Diana's birth details were indeed fabricated or even embellished, then her position in the royal line of succession could be questioned. According to a palace insider, the crown is a legal institution as much as it is a symbolic one. Every child in the line of succession is recorded for posterity and national continuity. If any error is proven out, or even suspected, it has to be quietly assessed. This led to a behind-closed-doors review of royal documentation procedures, particularly concerning children born to royals outside of the UK. 3. King Charles's personal reaction. King Charles III, a father burdened by decades of strained relationships with both his sons, was reportedly deeply disturbed by the claim, not only because it cast a shadow on the family name, but because it reopened old wounds about trust, rebellion, and public image, the same themes that have followed Harry since his departure from royal life. Charles, as sovereign, must also serve as protector of the monarchy. According to royal commentators, he convened a private meeting with senior aides to explore two questions. Should the monarchy publicly rebut the allegations to protect its integrity? Or should it maintain the time-tested tradition of silence and let the media narrative pass? Sources say Charles leaned toward restraint. Not because he dismissed the claim, but because engaging with it would elevate it. However, he allegedly tasked a private secretary with compiling an internal dossier on the matter, including a copy of the publicly released U.S. birth certificate, Lady C's claims and sources, analysis of U.S. public records regarding births on June 4, 2021, historical precedent on disputed royal births or parentage. This dossier, though not publicly acknowledged, would allow the Crown to quietly prepare in case the matter escalates legally or diplomatically. Of all the swirling theories surrounding Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's daughter, Lilibet Diana, none has proven more polarizing, emotionally charged, and potentially damaging than the idea that the child may have been born via a surrogate. While surrogacy is legal and widely accepted in many countries, the core of this controversy lies not in the method of birth itself, but in the perceived deception about it. Within royal circles, where lineage is meticulously documented and tradition is everything, even a whiff of concealment is enough to cause seismic rifts. The surrogacy theory didn't originate in tabloids or anonymous internet posts. It started subtly, in the form of inconsistencies, missed appearances, odd timelines, a strange calm around what should have been a high-profile royal birth. And from there, the story took shape, nurtured by gaps in evidence, silence from those who might have answered questions, and now, an alleged hospital record that doesn't match the official narrative. So what is this theory, and why is it such a lightning rod? What do its proponents claim? And if there's even a hint of truth behind it, what could it mean for the British monarchy, the public, and the very idea of transparency within the House of Windsor? Let's start by unpacking what the theory actually alleges. At its most basic, the surrogacy theory claims that Meghan Markle did not carry or give birth to Lilibet Diana herself. Instead, she and Harry allegedly contracted a private surrogate arrangement, possibly through an agency or individual, and worked to present the birth as if Meghan herself had carried the child to term. In most cases, this wouldn't be scandalous. But in the royal context, where the birth of each heir is a matter of public record, protocol, and symbolism, the stakes are drastically different. In the royal family, pregnancies are announced with careful timing, and births are witnessed and recorded with absolute precision. In past centuries, royal births were even attended by official observers to prevent any substitution or forgery. Though that practice has long ended, the need for verifiable, public trust in the royal bloodline has not. That's what makes the alleged concealment, if proven, so damaging. According to the theory, the surrogacy was arranged quietly in California, likely under tight confidentiality contracts. The woman who carried the child remains anonymous, and her role was never disclosed. The idea is that once the birth was complete, Meghan and Harry took the child as their own, legally, but presented the public with a narrative that she had delivered the baby herself, naturally, and privately at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. Now here's where the theory becomes explosive. If Meghan and Harry did use a surrogate and failed to disclose it, They would have been required by California law to file pre-birth or post-birth parentage documents. These documents would typically involve court filings, even if sealed, and medical certifications. But as Lady Colin Campbell and others have now alleged, there is no evidence of such documentation. No pre-birth court orders. No hospital records. No photographic evidence of Meghan in late-stage pregnancy around the supposed due date. Nothing except a carefully staged birthday photograph, weeks later, showing Lilibet smiling in a garden. This brings us to the first explosive consequence: succession legitimacy. According to British constitutional law, only legitimate, biologically connected children may inherit royal titles and positions in the line of succession. That means that if Lilibet was born through a surrogate and not biologically related to either Harry or Meghan, or if legal procedures were not followed properly, she could be deemed ineligible for succession. While this may sound like an extreme scenario, the fact that Lilibet is eighth in line to the throne makes it a matter of legal and historical importance. The British line of succession is not governed by tradition alone. It is enshrined in statute, from the Act of Settlement, 1701, to the Succession to the Crown Act, 2013. These laws clearly define who is eligible to become monarch and how legitimacy is maintained. Any ambiguity about birth or lineage could become a serious constitutional issue. The second consequence is reputational. If the public were to discover that a surrogate was used, and the truth was intentionally concealed, it would erode trust, not just in Harry and Meghan, but in the stories they've shared across media platforms, books, and interviews. Their multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix, Spotify, and publishers have hinged on a narrative of authenticity, vulnerability, and family. That narrative would be shattered. Worse, if they allowed the public to believe Meghan gave birth when she did not, it would be seen as an act of calculated deception, especially given the high-profile rollout of the name Lilibet, which directly invoked Queen Elizabeth's private childhood nickname. The public would see it not as an homage, but as a marketing ploy, a hijacking of royal identity. The third consequence is legal. While surrogacy itself is legal, falsifying a birth certificate is not. If Harry and Meghan submitted inaccurate information on Lilibet's birth certificate, either by naming Meghan as the biological mother when she was not, or omitting a surrogate's legal rights, they could be subject to civil or even criminal penalties in the U.S. Even if the hospital was not involved, any alteration or misrepresentation on a government document is a serious matter under California law. This brings us to another question. How plausible is the theory? Skeptics of the surrogacy claim say that it's based on circumstantial evidence and speculation. After all, it's possible that Meghan carried Lilibet privately, stayed out of the public eye, and chose not to release photos for privacy reasons. They also point out that many celebrities choose to give birth under the radar, using aliases at hospitals or securing exclusive wings. However, critics of Harry and Meghan counter with a different view. They point to the couple's long history of public storytelling, media management, and strategic image building. Why, they ask, would a couple so intent on controlling their public narrative choose radio silence at the time of their daughter's birth, especially when it could have served as a powerful counterweight to criticism? Furthermore, the timeline of Meghan's appearances has been dissected closely by observers. Several photos released around the supposed pregnancy have been scrutinized for anomalies, odd angles, inconsistent body shapes, or strange digital artifacts. While some of these claims verge into conspiracy territory, others raise genuine questions about why Meghan's pregnancy with Lilibet was kept entirely out of view. With the release of Lady Colin Campbell's allegations, including her claim that no official birth occurred at the stated hospital on the declared date, the theory has. Among all the details surrounding the birth of Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor, none has raised more eyebrows or provoked more heated debates than her birth certificate. What should have been a straightforward document has instead become a focal point in the controversy surrounding Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's second child. From missing signatures and amended details to inexplicable inconsistencies in registration timing, the certificate has become a puzzle with too many pieces left loose. In this section, we break down everything we know about Lilibet's birth certificate. When was it issued? What does it include? What was changed and why? And most importantly, how do these irregularities feed into the larger suspicion that something about Lilibet's birth isn't as it appears? Let's begin with the timeline. According to official records from the state of California, Lilibet Diana's birth was recorded as occurring on June 4, 2021, at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. However, the certificate itself wasn't made public until several weeks later. At first glance, that seems acceptable. Many celebrities and royals wait days or weeks before releasing any documentation. But in this case, the delay was compounded by an unusual absence. No photograph, no hospital confirmation, and no press notification were issued at the time of birth. Compare that to the birth of Archie Harrison in 2019. Within days of his birth, not only was the world informed, but Meghan and Harry posed for a brief photo with their newborn. A signed and publicly accessible birth certificate was quickly filed in London. Royal protocol was followed to the letter, even though Harry and Meghan were already showing signs of stepping back from traditional engagements. But with Lilibet, there was nothing. No hospital statement. No medical team announcement. No nurse sightings. The hospital refused to confirm or deny whether Meghan Markle had ever been a patient, citing HIPAA laws. While that's common practice, the absence of corroboration from any source created an environment ripe for speculation. When the birth certificate did emerge,